Hey, you know what time it is. It's time for another book review. Hey guys, it's Dan back with another book review, and this time I'm here to review Beloved by Toni Morrison. Now, this is my first experience with Toni Morrison, and I have to say, there is so much to unpack with this book. I'm going to go over a lot of the stuff that I think is key and vital into knowing about this book. If you have not read Beloved yet, I think it's kind of important to know that Toni Morrison had written this book after she learned about Margaret Peggy Garner, who, and even if you have read the book but you didn't know that she based it on that person, then go check out her story. It'll help you understand the book a little bit better. I'm kind of glad that I had found that fact out, that she had based this story on that person and a historical moment. This book goes over like the psychological traumas of slavery. It takes place in two different times. The main timeline is shortly after the Civil War, and then some of the events, like flashback scenes, happen during the Civil War. Now, there are a cast of main characters. There is Setha, there is her mother-in-law, Baby Suggs, there is her daughter, Denver, there's her boyfriend, Paul D., and there's the mysterious character of Beloved. And I'm going to try not to say too much about Beloved, because I feel like if I talk too much about her character, it'll really spoil the story for you, and I don't want to do that. Okay, now, I will admit, this book had a really slow start. It took me a while to get into this because one of the issues I had with this book was, while I think that Toni Morrison's prose is where it's at, and I know she's known for her prose, and I think the plot is an awesome idea, but she kind of jumps around, and the way she introduces the flashbacks was really random. I mean, it does in a overall sense, it made sense because it told the backstory for a lot of the main characters. It did help you understand like the traumas and explain different things. Like, she talks about like Baby Suggs and how, you know, she's no longer a slave, and now she has time to enjoy things like color, like the color of the sky, sunsets, and stuff like that. And like a lot of stuff that we take for granted because, you know, when you're worked so hard that you just don't notice things like that, and things like family. One of the interesting things, there was a scene where Setha and Paul D were talking, and I think Setha was combing his hair, and she said something along the lines like, "Didn't your woman do this for you?" And I thought that was kind of odd that she would call his mother or his caregiver his woman. And like, but you learn later that his mother may not have necessarily had taken care of him. That he said that his mother only breastfed him for a short amount of time, and then she was right back into the fields and handed off to some other woman. Like, they didn't even live in the same like building together. And I found that to be interesting because a lot of people don't think about that kind of stuff, and just the familial relationships among slaves, and how like members of your family could be sold off or, you know, killed. And you know, there was so much to do with that. But the main story has to do with Setha and her pain and her trauma of dealing with her past is the main focus of the story. And that's why I'm saying you got to know about Margaret Peggy Garner, because that's kind of vital to help you understand what's going on with Beloved. You know, Paul D, Setha, and Denver are kind of like a family unit. One day they go to a carnival and they return, and this is where they first come across Beloved. And Beloved is this mute girl who's wearing really nice clothes. She's all soaking wet like she had come out of the river. And she can't really say much. All she can really say is her name, which she says is Beloved. And She's wearing like unscuffed shoes, really nice clothes, and it's just a whole mystery of where did she come from and what's wrong with her, because she appears to be very weak and sickly. So Setha takes it upon herself, because she's dealing with the whole guilt of her past. She feels like she has to take care of this girl because she feels guilty about her past. And I'm not really going to talk about what happened in her past, because I feel like that's another spoiler that I don't want to ruin for you if you have not read the book. Yeah, so much to unpack with this. There were some scenes like that were kind of creepy when it came to Beloved. There's like the haunting of the baby that haunts the house, which I thought wasn't that weird, but like there was other scenes that were just kind of weird with Beloved and Paul D and the cold house or cold shed or whatever they called it, and the whole touch me on the inside and say my name. You have to admit that that was a fucked up and weird scene. Yeah, so that's part of the reason why I rated it what I did, because that was kind of bizarre and kind of weird. Like, I love the way it was written. Don't get me wrong. I love Toni Morrison's prose. But then there were some scenes and the way it was written that just didn't... It just seemed kind of off. Like, there was this, like, inner battle with Setha, like, where she's kind of having this inner turmoil, like, argument with herself that was just kind of written out like a poem. And it was just kind of weird and felt out of place for the overall telling of the story. I did enjoy this book. Don't get me wrong. I don't want you to think that I didn't like this book. I did enjoy it. I did learn a lot of things and found a lot of things interesting with it. I thought it was kind of interesting how, like, the whole focus on the relationship between Setha and Baby Suggs. Like, I know some people, I was reading reviews, had misconstrued that relationship, and they had misunderstood, and they thought that that was Setha's mother. No, that was her mother-in-law, and they say it a number of times in the text that Baby Suggs is her mother-in-law. And the whole family relationship, and there are some like sub-characters like Hallie and Stampede. But yeah, I mean, overall, I did think this is a worthwhile book of checking out. I did give it a 3.5 rating on Goodreads. Rounded that up to 4 stars because they don't do half stars. But just because of the weird structure, the way it was written, and that whole weird scene in the cold shed would touch me on the inside, I had to give it a 3.5. I thought that was kind of weird. It is worthwhile checking out. It is good. If you want to learn, about what, like, psychological traumas, what it was like to be a slave, I think that Toni Morrison did a really good job with that. And how, like, you don't really think about what it's like to be owned by somebody. Like, not just, like, no matter how they treated you, but just the fact that you're owned by somebody and you're not your own self. This is one of the things that's pointed out in the end of the book. This is not spoiling it, but Paul D says to Setha, basically trying to pick her up and say, hey, you are... one of the most important and beautiful things, and he emphasizes that to her and reminds her of that because she kind of like just is overwhelmed with this whole guilt about her past, and the whole like second part of the book goes into her spiraling into that guilt and that depression about that. But I did enjoy it. It is worthwhile checking out. Of course, as always, for those of you in the U.S., I say I have an Amazon link down below if you want to check this book out for yourselves. I'm still working on getting the international links set up. The whole AWIN thing that the Book Depository is doing is a little bit different. I'm trying to learn it, so have patience with me while I try to get those links figured out. I'm not sure when my Book Depository links are going to stop working. I know they sent me an email and they said, hey, you got to switch over to this new system. But of course, as always, I will have a coffee link too, if you don't mind throwing in a buck or two to help me out. I'm not getting AdSense, slowly growing and getting there, but even when I do reach that 1,000 subscribers, I'm still going to rely on affiliate links and the coffee link because, YouTube and Google are not reliable with their changes and all of that. I'm just going to keep doing affiliate links. That's all I got for you guys. I feel like this may have been too short a review, but it is what it is. There's so much that I could have said, and I really don't want to spoil the book, but I just wanted to go over those key points about the book. If you came here looking for book reviews and book recommendations, please hit that subscriber button. And while you're there, hit that notification bell so you're well aware of when I upload again. Thank you for watching. Until next time, later.